Hey YouTube, it's Saturday, cold day. This weather's crazy. Yesterday it was like this. It was sunny, really sunny out, and it was almost almost 40. Today it's really sunny out. There was no wind or anything last night, but the temperature is down in the 20s, and it's not supposed to go higher than 30. But anyway, I had shoveled or plowed most of this snow out of here so I could get at this thing. I want to be able to test some of these boards to see what kind of moisture content is in them. So I'm going to pick this first one up here just to check it, and then I'll let you know what I have here. I was asked some questions about how I framed this and how I built this. This kiln is like this. On the bottom there's a concrete slab that's 7 foot by 18 foot. That gives me enough for 16 footers. Okay, I can put two 8-foot pieces in there and still have a little room on each side. So that's why I built it that size. Now, the wall where the basic walls are made out of 2x4s. What they are is they're going upright every 2 foot or so, and then I have a board going between them, running all the way around, like what would be almost like a fire stop, but you know, in 2 or 3 places, so that when I put the siding on, the board and batten siding, that I would have nailing for it, and I do, so that's all seems good. So I haven't had any real problems with the kiln at all. It doesn't leak inside of it or anything like that. So, you know, I'm fine. I did knock a little hole in it last year, right here. I need to fix this. All I need to do is slip a piece of this underneath and it'll be fine. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. I haven't been down to Lowe's to pick up the pieces. So it's made out of 2x4s. It's totally insulated. And then the wall where the fans are, all that wall is it comes out about 18 inches and down about 2 foot. And all I did was build another wall in there, straight across, that's nailed to the back wall, so to have a place for the air to go. So the air comes out the top, comes down through the boards, and back again. It just repeats itself. And depending upon how much moisture is in there, I open the vents to get rid of some of the moisture. But this time of the year, it doesn't really do you any good, because it's the moisture content in the air right now is usually pretty bad. However, you can see that it's down near 30 there. At least I think you can see that on the meter. So that's really good for drying. So today is a good day to dry. It's 80 degrees in there, even though it's 20 degrees outside. So I'm gonna just check some of the wood and see what it says. And so I'm gonna start near the top here. You can see that that's around 10% there. I'm gonna drop down another 18 inches, 15%. Go down here, got about 14% there. So it's lower than it is. The relative humidity is lower outside or inside than it is outside here. Let me shut this door to keep the heat in. Hold on. Okay, I have that closed. So here's what's going on here now. The wood that's in there is down around 15, 14%, 10%, and that's good. It's drying nicely. Now, it would be nice if it dried in a month, and sometimes in the dead of summer, the wood will dry pretty quick. It'll dry in like a month's time, down to maybe 8 or 10%, which is good. 10% is not bad, but I'd like it to go down lower than that. I would like it to be down around 8, you know, or even 6. Now, the boards are staying nice and straight. They look really good in there. Nothing's taking a big, you know, weave or pulling itself and screwing up the pile. So this is all nice lumber in here. The way this works is, right now the relative humidity outside is probably, it's not going to be real high because we have a lot of sun, but it's probably around 19 or so. And that you can tell is about 5 points lower than that, 5 to 9 points lower, which is good. And that tells you that the kiln is working regardless of the size of, you know, the outside compared to the inside. The thing is that you want to make sure that you have the fans going all the time. I don't shut these fans off except for at night when it turns dark. Other than that, the fans run 7 days a week, you know, probably, let's see, I think they start at 7 and they shut off at 9. Or no, they shut off at 6. Yeah, so they're running for about 11 hours now. And sometimes during the summer they'll run longer than that because I'll have them run up until 9 o'clock at night. But either way, the object here is to get the air to come from the fan, hit the front of this, work its way through the wood slowly and back up. It's like a cycle, and it does it fairly well. It's you know, there's a couple things that could have been made better. Maybe a different way of framing this would have made this better, but I'm happy with the way it works and I don't have any trouble with it. The nice thing about it is when you have really bad weather, if you know, snow, the snow sometimes covers the whole thing, but yet the temperature inside there is still pretty warm. So that tells me that this plastic can insulate pretty well. I mean, it's not like 10 inches of insulation, but it does a good job of slowing down the heat loss from the wood. And once that wood gains all that heat, you know, it's hard for it to lose it. It'll hang on to it overnight or 2 nights. But what I'm getting at here is the snow covered this entire thing, and you know, there's no sun hitting it. But without any effort on my own, if I didn't do anything, now I do usually come and clean the snow off of it, but without any effort at all, if you didn't do that, the snow would melt off of it during the daytime. If the sun is shining, it'll fall off, and then you'll end up having a nice clear you know, sun area to shine through there. So that's what I like about this thing, and it does seem to make the wood really nice. And then once the wood loses that extra moisture, when I put it in my garage to store it, even though the garage is not heated, the point is that you're stacking the wood together, and it's really not doesn't have the ability to pull moisture into it that quickly. Now some of the outside boards, you know, the boards on the top, the boards on the side will, but in between the pile, which I have the pile tightly, you know, stacked, usually saves you from any moisture attacking it. But this is going to be some really nice stuff. There's white ash in there mainly, some red oak, and it's going to be really nice wood. That's the thing. Somebody had said something to me about wanting to see me cut graded lumber. Well, you know, your question is okay, but the problem is all lumber's graded. If you think about it, it doesn't matter what you cut. Either it's a poor grade or it's a very good grade, so, and somewhere in between. So it's hard for me to answer your question when you say, you know, can you cut graded lumber? I do cut graded lumber every time I cut, and if it's a good grade, I keep it. If it's not a good grade, I get rid of it, and that's how it works. So anyway, yeah, it's made out of 2x4s. It's totally insulated. Oh, the concrete floor. What I was going to say about that is it's 7 foot by 18 foot. It's 4 inches of concrete on that. I put 6 on this concrete for the wood miser, but that has 4 inches of concrete. There's insulation in the concrete as well underneath it to keep the, you know, the temperature from moving around too much. So that seems to help this pretty well. Now usually these things open up from the back so you can get at the wood easier. I did not want to have to cut trees down back there. My property goes over there probably 150 feet, and I don't want to have to do anything over there. I want that buffer between me and somebody else on that side. The way it works here is I just open these doors and put the boards on each side, and I come in there and grab lumber and put it onto the Ford backhoe forks. Now what I found out this year is, I'll tell you what, a skid of lumber like this, especially when it's wet, is about all that this backhoe can handle. Now I'm talking about that big of a pile, so that you're looking at about 5 foot high. It's probably 4 foot high, 4 foot wide, and then it goes from 4 foot to 2 foot on the top. But nonetheless, it's a very heavy when it's wet. So right now it's probably a lot lighter than it was when I first cut it. And then what I do with this, just to keep you up to date if you're just watching, come spring, a nice day in spring, I'll take and I'll plane all of this stuff, and then I'll put it in my garage and store it, or I'll sell it. It depends on, you know, what comes down the pike. I try not to advertise anything for sale, because I can sell everything I cut that's good wood to a flooring guy, but I don't really want to get rid of it right now. I want to just see what all I can get from the lumber that I've been cutting. I have a couple loads of pine coming sometime this coming year. I'm not sure when the guy's going to do the work, but hopefully that'll take place and I'll be able to do a lot of that cutting. I really like cutting pine. I like framing lumber. I like pine lumber because I can make stuff out of it when you can nail it easy. Nailing hardwoods is very hard. You need to drill it or screw it or something. It's hard to nail oak. Alright guys, well, you got the chance to see, you know, where I stand here with this thing, and it's doing good. We're pretty much not quite in the middle of winter. Usually January is about the middle of winter here, but you know, like I say, the temperature is cold, and inside there it's 80, so that's good. Alright, so have a good one. Hey YouTube. So what I'm going to do here this morning is give you a little explanation of how I built my kiln, because I've been getting a bunch of questions about it, and some people have been actually stopping by asking me questions, so I'm going to just give you this quick thing. First of all, clear yourself a piece of ground, and what I did, looking in a plan view, I just cleared roughly I don't know, a 10 foot by, or say 20 foot piece of property. That's the first thing you want to do. Okay, clear yourself a piece of ground. And try and do it, to save yourself extra work, try and do it where it's fairly level. And when I say fairly level, I mean it should be dead level. So if you can clear the ground and then, you know, you're level, then you can just put some stone down. So then after you clear the ground, say a 10 by 20 area there, then what you want to do is get yourself some 2x4s, okay? So I had 2x4s, and what I did was I basically framed out an 18 foot by 7 foot concrete pad with 2x4s. Okay, so if you want to look at it from a plan view, basically the 2x4s, just this, to give myself 18 feet on the inside now. Okay, so I just framed out a square or a rectangle 7 foot by 18 foot. Okay, and I had that clear inside. And then because I was putting doors over here, well, let me just say this to you. After I graded it off, after I graded the ground off, I put stone down, okay? So then I took and I framed this out, and I made sure that the top of the frame was level. Alright, so I had put stone down, so there's stone in here right now. Alright, so you frame it out 7 foot by 18 foot. Now that's what I did. You can make yours any size you want, but this is what I did because I wanted 16 foot lengths in order to be able to, I wanted to be able to put 16 foot lengths in here and still have some space for the air to go around the edges of it. I just want to see what you're seeing here. I'll just zoom in a little bit there. Okay. Alright, so basically, you know, not a lot to it. So you form out with 2x4s, so you have on the inside, and I guess I should put this numbers actually inside here. So inside I had 7 foot and 18 foot clear inside those 2x4s. So you're looking at 2x4s resting on the ground. You know, this is the ground here. I use a couple of stakes. What I do is I drive stakes in until they're even with the top of the 2x4 on the outside, like right here. And it makes it a lot easier to screed the concrete off and whatever you want to do with it. It just makes it easier to work with. So I cut these off or drive them down until they're even with the top of the 2x4, just like I showed here. Okay, so they're in the ground, but the 2x4 is even on the top. So then, after I form that out and I make sure it's square by measuring from one angle to the other, and this, if you measure from here to here, and then from here to here, those numbers should be exactly the same. Okay, exactly, and then it'll be square. Now, I like square and level stuff. I don't like things that are not that, because it's easy to do, and you may as well do it. It makes life better and easier later. So I formed that out, okay, and then on the inside of the 2x4, so let's say you have this 2x4, I'll draw it a little bit bigger here. You have this 2x4 then. This is just to show you like the inside of it. So there's basically stone underneath this, okay? Stone underneath this. And then what I did was I put a 1-inch piece of styrofoam underneath here. So that 1-inch styrofoam is all the way through this entire thing, okay? It's against the 2x4s and it's all the way around. Now, that means that when I pour concrete, when I pour the concrete into here, that the concrete is going to be even with that styrofoam all the way around the edge. Alright, so this is a good thing. Alright, so then you fill out with concrete. So I put 1 inch of, and you can use almost any kind of styrofoam you want. All I'm trying to do is decrease the amount of temperature that runs through any given wall or surface. Okay, so having some styrofoam underneath the concrete slows down, and it doesn't stop it, but it slows down the temperature change from inside the building to going outside the building. Alright? Now, a lot of people have said to me that the ground temperature is always 50, or it's 50 degrees or whatever. I don't know where they come up with that, but none of that's true. So there's some things that talk about it, but just take for granted that the ground's going to get as cold as it does anywhere else at this point, because you're on the surface. So 4 inches thick concrete is more than enough to handle the wood that I'm going to put in there. Now, if I was putting something bigger in there, if I had this thing maybe 10 foot wide and 20 foot long, I would have probably poured a 6-inch slab. But I just went with a 4-inch thick slab, okay? Top of the concrete, basically to the bottom of the concrete. Now, when I formed this out with 2x4s, I used regular 2x4s that I cut off the mill, so they were a full-size 2x4. So actually you probably lose about 1 inch here because of the styrofoam. But you don't have to. You can keep the stone down a little, keep the boards up above the stone if you want to. It's up to you. Putting it on the stone is a lot easier, and then just lose that inch or so, you know, when you go to put this down. Now, you don't necessarily have to have 1 inch here. You could put 1/2-inch styrofoam. You could put R-Max or any kind of insulating foam that you want to slow this down. It doesn't have to be any specific thing, okay? Just so you slow the temperature down and it gets a chance to build up inside. That's what you want. You want the temperature inside the kiln to be able to build up. So this would be the floor then. So the other thing that you don't want to forget, for me, if this is the front, okay, I want this open and I can take my wall out of there to get in there. So what I did was I put, I'll just show you here. So I put bolts then, like in the concrete 3 inches off here, in the corners, every so far apart so that I could put them in the concrete and then bolt my sill plate down, okay, onto something solid with something solid. So those are anchor bolts that I put in there, okay, that's what the dots are representing. And you know, if you have them a foot over from each corner, that's good. A foot, keep them within 6 inches of these ends, and then put them, you know, all throughout. And the way to figure out where to put the boards is depends on how you're going to frame it. If you're going to frame it every 16 inches, think about that when you go to put the bolts in, so you're not fighting the bolts every time you got to put a stud up. Now, it's just something to think about. All right, and an anchor bolt that I'm talking about is basically a bolt that looks like this, has threads on it partway down, and you put that into the concrete about that far. You don't want to push this down lower than 3 inches because then it'll move. So you want to keep it so that you're down there. If this is an 8-inch bolt, then you know you're going to have about 5 inches sticking up or more, which is okay, but you want to make sure that you don't go below the concrete so that this doesn't spin on you when you go to tighten it. All right? So that's the anchor bolts and the floor so far. So basically that's all I did there. And then I ordered concrete and I poured the floor for the kiln, and I poured the floor for the sawmill at the same time. Okay, so then after I poured the concrete floor, and the floor dried a couple days, and I could take the forms off without hurting anything, I had, you know, a nice concrete pad there that had styrofoam underneath it. Okay? So then what I did was I started to put the forming boards down, or the frame I mean, and what I did was along the top of the 2x4, or the top of the concrete, I'm sorry, the top of the concrete, I laid a 2x4 on its edge like this, on its flat side I should say, in other words, it's like that. Okay, so the 2-inch way is this way, this was laying flat, and I framed out then around the whole thing. Now this is the sill plate here. Okay, so then when you put the sill plate down, normally when I do framing for something, I frame studs vertically every 16 inches. So in other words, you have a 2x4 here and a 2x4 there, so you start off with, you know, and you're going every 16 inches. But on this particular wall, I didn't do that. And the reason I didn't do that is because I was using 1x12 board and battens, you know, with the little batten on it. And in order to get these to lay flat, you can't have them between 2x4s, okay? And to be able to fasten them, you got to have the 2x4s running the opposite way. So what I did was, I put, like say on the back big wall, okay, so I have a 2x4 on the bottom there, and then for the back wall I had a 2x4 on the top, and then I also had a header, a 2x10, two 2x10s sandwiched together, okay, like this, sandwiched together, nailed together. I had that at this very end. So when I put my stud here, I had one stud here, the full height. And you have to do the figuring for what the height is going to be, because mine is I think 43 degrees or 43 degrees. So you need to know what the height's going to be and how far you want the bottom to be, how high you want it to be before, like say looking at the side of the kiln, it goes like this. Okay, so you need to know what you want here and you know what this angle is going to be up in here. That's the problem. Now they tell you in the paper that I pass out or send to people from Virginia Tech, I believe it is, will tell you how to do that. So anyway, I had the 2x4s on the ends. I put two 2x4s for headers here. And once I had that all nailed together, then I stood that up, and I actually did it with the backhoe because the 2x10 18-foot long was pretty heavy. So I picked that up with the backhoe and then kind of set it down, and we put it over the anchor bolts that were in the ground or in the concrete there. Okay, so once I have it that way, I did put a couple of studs in, but I put them about every 2 feet. So I went about every 2 feet with a stud, and I'm just roughing this out. But then I went this direction. So I came up a foot and I went this way within the 2x4, okay, within it. So in other words, here's a 2x4 and here's the next one. I put the 2x4s on the inside here, okay. I didn't put them on the outside, I just put them on the inside. So I cut pieces to fit. So I had a 2x4 roughly here, and you want to go no more than 2 feet. So then this was 10 foot high, so 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 10. So basically there were 2x4s running across here, nailed into place, sort of like that. So I had some studs and I had 2x4s this way. And what that did was that gave me a good nailing surface for everything that I was going to nail on the outside as far as the siding goes. I did not put any kind of sheathing at all on this building. All I did was put the 1x10 or the 1x12 on. And then as far as the, that's the back with the big header. And as far as the sides then, I figured out mine to be a 43-degree angle up top there. Okay, this was 43 degrees up in here for where I live. And then I made this a certain height. I framed this wall out. Okay, so I had the front wall framed out, I had the back wall framed out, and then all I did was just go ahead and put some studs. This was a 2x4 here. This is 2x4s back here. So then I just put studs like every 2 foot, and again came across them with 2x4s and doubled this one up so that I could have a place for nailing. So you want to get them 2x4s almost all the way to the top there so the 1x12 can be nailed on. And again, they were sitting on anchor bolts, and I just nailed that together, and then I nailed the siding on. So there's not a lot to it. It's fairly easy. I mean, I'm not making this video for kids. I'm making it for somebody who knows something about working with wood. So that's all I did to get the kiln built. And basically, after I did that, I measured the square from the front. So in other words, you're looking at the kiln. We have the top of the kiln there, and then we have the 2x4 walls. Oh, the 2x4 wall here. This is looking down from the top. Okay, so then I had this front wall here done. So all I did was I got a measurement from here to here to here and over to this. And I framed out with 1x3, okay, with 1x3 I framed out a square that was going to hold the fiberglass. Now I knew that that wasn't going to be very heavy, so I just framed it out in such a way that I came all the way across with full-size boards, and then I just put, I think they're every 2 foot across here, okay. And then there was one spot in the middle where I knew I was going to have 2 sections opening up because 18 foot is really too heavy for one person. So I doubled up on the 2x4s in here. Like I separated them a little bit, maybe 4 inches, so that there was a place where the sheeting that's kind of like this could overlap here, and then I could open this door, close it, or I could open this door and then I could open that door. This door has to be opened first before I can open that door. Now this would be the bottom of the, this is the bottom of the wall here. So that's the glass, fiberglass area. Then once I framed that out, I went every 3 foot here. Okay, roughly came across with 1x3, not between the 2 boards though. The 2x4s that I was going to use for separation. And then I just went and screwed, starting at this point, I screwed on the fiberglass. Everywhere I could screw it. Now on the bottom, I left it, and I'll just show you, like let's say that's the door there, the big doors. On the bottom I left this sheeting stick down here a little ways to drip off the edge and not hit the wood, not run off the wood. Now it hits it, but it doesn't run off of it. And then on the top, what I did was the top, let's see, we had this angle here. Okay, we had this angle at the very top. So my 1x3 was laying like this. So then what I did was I took right on the very edge of this, on top of the aluminum, or on top of the, not the aluminum, on top of the fiberglass, I actually came around here with a piece of rolled roofing so that that would protect this joint, and then I put hinges in here at the top. I have, I think, 3 hinges here, 3 hinges here, and then I put 2 handles down here, and it's basically that simple. The sides rest right on the 2x4 on each side, but the fiberglass runs out a little bit to try to keep some of the water off of that. I haven't had any problem with it. It pretty much stays together, although last year the one handle came off. I had to put new handles in. What happened was with the handles is I had used screws to put the handle on, and those screws weren't strong enough, so I had to put bolts down through. So I put some 1/4-inch bolts through and everything was good there. So if you have any questions, I can send you the stuff that I have from this Virginia State, or Virginia Tech rather, and you can ask any questions you want. Okay, that's that.